Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to Mallory's Weird World Adventures, the podcast. And finally, I am here today with Dakota Bailey. And she joined the Explorers Club when I did. And we experienced our first Explorers Club annual dinner together. So we wanted to get together and talk about it with everyone because it was probably the most exciting weekend I've ever attended, to say the least.
To say the least.
So I guess really fast with the basics. Dakota, do you want to talk about joining the Explorers Club? And then the two of us actually met at a SoCal chapter event. And we're roughly around the same age, and we just planned out our first experience together, and it was incredible.
Yeah, we really lucked out, I think. It was perfect timing for us. For me, joining the Explorers Club was like a several year process. I learned about it in a memoir that I read like 5-6 years ago, and I had no idea how I would join, but I knew I wanted to join. And then here comes the pandemic, and I decided what a better time to go back to school and do something I never would have done with my normal. So that was my studies in Egyptology, and it's been incredible. And meeting you at that first meeting was just a huge relief, like a massive, massive relief, because I was there and I was like, I am going to be the least impressive person here. Everyone's going to have these full lives of exploration and nobody's going to be on the same page as me, like just kind of starting out. And then it was like, oh, actually, this is fantastic. And we just got along so perfectly right away. And it was, I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything better. That was fantastic. And we've traveled together now.
And what I think what's so exciting too, so the ECAD takes place every year in New York City. And so, we got the Explorers Club block of the hotel. So, in theory, everyone from the Explorers Club is staying at this hotel, and we think it's going to be like right there at the Explorers Club headquarters. And it's really not. It was, what was it, 17 blocks or something? It was
Oh,
crazy.
at least. It was a trek. It was a trek. Absolutely.
So we didn't just attend together. We explored together. We walked down 17 blocks down Fifth Avenue,
Every day, at least
Lexington.
twice a day. Twice a day. Yeah, we got our steps in for sure. I came back and I was like, oh, I feel like I need to go on a walk around the neighborhood or something. Now I'm suddenly like used to walking everywhere because we just didn't really have a choice.
No, and it's funny because the first day, so we came in on Thursday, right, and checked out the Explorers Club headquarters before everybody else got there, and then stayed through Sunday, or you stayed through Monday. And the first day, we're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna give us an hour to walk there, and we had all this time, and there was so much planning involved, and like we were gonna get there early. And then by the end, you're like, let's just take the subway. We can get there in 10
Yeah.
minutes.
It's like we need coffee. We need to get there in 10 minutes. And we we don't have any other choice.
But yeah, that
It
was.
was a good move though, getting there that day early. That place was packed. Once people started filling in, it was like, well, can't even hear myself think.
It was insanity. And yeah, the first day, it's funny because you think people would arrive early to check it out, but we went there on Thursday and there was no one. It was us and like the staff setting up for the weekend, which was great because we got to take a bunch of pictures and really get to experience the club, before
Mhm.
it was psychotic. We got to find that random bathtub, which we were so obsessed with.
It was a really cool bathtub. How many clawfoot tubs do you see on a, you know, daily basis? I guess unless you have one.
Especially, like, I don't know, at a place of work. Like, I wanna work there and be like, I'm just gonna stay and take a bath before I go home.
Yeah, get your relaxing end of the day relaxation routine started before you even leave work. Sounds great.
It's great, and it was also a savior for us because when it did get super crowded, I think it was the first 4th floor maybe, that it was on, I think I remember this, because no one really knew about the bathroom, so we had, like, our special bathroom with a tub upstairs.
Yeah, and no line, which was the best. Oh, it was so much fun. And I couldn't tell if everyone had just been there before or if it I don't know, it's nice to have that extra day to kind of nerd out, not in front of everyone, and we could play
Yes.
it cool the rest of the time.
I think we did play it pretty cool, except when we like, I think the day that everything kind of came together was Friday, and it was chaotic for sure at, the opening events when they had the 50, the next gen, right? Who it was the next
Oh, yeah,
gen
the next
and
gen.
then 50, like, it had everybody speaking in the morning, and then there was supposed to be a reception for new members, which I think just didn't exist and was really just a reception anyway. And we thought that, "Oh, yeah, how many new members there gonna be? We'll get there and we'll just get in." And then it was like line out the door, and we're like, "What is happening?"
Yeah, there wasn't any whatever the time was on the schedule, nobody paid attention to it. They're like, "I'm gonna show up when I wanna show up," and that's just before the festivities begin for everyone. Like, "All right."
And they stayed all day. Like, they're like Steve, our chapter, chair for SoCal, he never left. Like, he was there from early in the morning until late at night.
Yeah, every single day. I would walk into a room that I'd never been in before, and Steve was there talking to people, and he'd look at me like, "How did you get in here?" I'm like, "I honestly don't know. How did you get in here? Like, where am I?"
I like too that so it's in the Explorers Club is off of Lexington, and what was the cross street? Do you remember?
70th.
70th Street, so up in New York City, and it's one of those old, Victorian style houses in New York, so
Gorgeous.
it's like twisty, windy stairs. I think there was, uh, 8 6 floors maybe, but then there's half floors, so is it really 6?
Yeah, I don't understand how that works, but I think it was partially for your mental
Mhm.
exhaustion to keep you from getting exhausted going up. You're like, "Oh, yeah, I've only been up 4, stories," but it's actually like 6 or 7 flights of stairs.
Yeah, it was crazy. So there's all these parts of it that you can explore. There's all these random rooms that you don't really know about unless you're familiar with it, and then you have, like, a tour guide or something. There's offices that are there, so you don't really know where you're supposed to be or where you're not supposed to be. So we may or may not have just been opening doors at one point.
Yeah, at least everyone was very open to it. Like if you wound up in a hallway somewhere, someone would be like, instead of yelling at you about being where you're not supposed to be, they'd be like, "Oh, do you know about this picture on the wall or this painting? Or did you know that Teddy Roosevelt used this table and blah, blah." And so you're kind of like, "Oh, you're rewarded for sneaking around because it's everyone's space. It's our headquarters. It belongs to all of us."
And exploring. Yeah, I mean, I love everyone has an explorer's mindset, so you're not punished for being curious and creative. Everyone's just kind of interested and curious to meet new people and see what's going on and, "Oh, what's over here?" and "What can I learn here today?"
Yeah, it's so cool. It's one of those things that after that experience, I kind of wanted to try to bring it into my everyday life of like, okay, how do I feel this way when I'm going to work or when I like have a day off and I don't just want to sit around catching up on TV or, trying to keep that sense of exploration alive, even in the mundane day to day.
Yes. And I mean, I really like it shook my world when there was there was one of the days I had a special ticket. So I was supposed to be at the presentations this day. I really was, I promise. And then there was like an extended lunch afterwards that I may or may have not just like floated with the crowd into and didn't necessarily realize maybe I wasn't supposed to be there, but I was so welcomed, and I knew all the people there. So it wound up being fine, and I had such a wonderful time. And then maybe realized I wasn't supposed to be there. And rather than being reprimanded, our chair from the SoCal chapter was just like, "I'm so proud of you. Good job." So, like that ability to open doors or wander places that you don't know what's happening and just kind of blending in with it gets celebrated at the Explorers Club, which I really love. I mean, it's just so cool to have that sense of curiosity praised and admired instead of, being reprimanded for it.
Yeah, it almost felt like a test of like, how much do you play by the rules? If you don't play by the rules, they're like, "Great, you're one of us.
Yes,
Welcome to the
and
pool."
there's like rules, but then no one followed them. So were there really rules at all?
Guidelines, full guidelines, just suggestions, light suggestions.
And like, Dakota can vouch for the fact that I very much have OCD and I'm like, "What is happening? This is chaos. This is chaos the whole weekend." And she's like, "Yeah,
Yeah, I think we balanced each other out pretty well with that. I was very happy that you let me drag you into every chaotic situation possible during that weekend.
And I appreciate it so much because I feel like we complemented each other really well. I'm not like I'm an introvert, but I can pretend sometimes to be an extrovert. And so you were like, I'm gonna talk to this person, I'm gonna talk to this person. So it was such a nice push to be social. Like like you were the driving force in helping me to be not completely awkward in front of all these people.
Massive extrovert here. I am a
Mhm.
social butterfly for sure.
And so I guess with the socializing for the Explorers Club, you meet all these incredible people and no one is boring. No one has not done something exceptional. Like everyone's career paths, you're like, how, what? Like, so many astronauts, so many astrophysicists, so many rocket scientists. I mean, people are just doing everything. So who do you think is the most like or what's the most interesting maybe career path you ran into, you think, during the weekend?
Oh, that is a very difficult question. I don't know. I think, I mean, one of my favorite things was, I mean, every once in a while you'd have one of those characters that really wanted you to be impressed by whatever they did. And so they would talk about themselves a lot. You're going to have those people everywhere. But it was incredible that almost every single person in any room you were in thought that the person next to them was the most interesting person in the world. And they thought the person next to them or across the room, there was always no one was too impressed with themselves because they thought the next person that they met was incredible. And even I had massive imposter syndrome. People would ask, what my connection was. And I'd be like, well, I'm, a student getting my master's. And they'd be like, that is so cool. I was like, is it? Because you've been to space. I'm like, is that cool? I think there was one, Richard Garriott, who's the club president, came and sat with us
Yeah,
one
that was
day.
wild.
He was just asking how we were doing and just, just doing small talk and enjoying our company. And it was like, that's an astronaut. He's an astronaut just decided to come sit with us and ask us how we're doing and hang out and and that was just like mind blowing. I think that was one of the coolest moments for me. It was like he could have so easily have trotted around on his high horse, and he was, for an astronaut, very down to earth.
Oh, yeah, and I didn't even know he was the club president, and that's terrible, but you were like, "That's the club president." I'm like, "It is?" He was so, like, chill and kind. I was like, "Really? That's
Yeah.
awesome."
And I thought it was absolutely hilarious whenever we met someone who was like a rocket scientist or an astronaut or anything. You'd ask them what they do, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, space." I was like, is it? I mean, I guess it is like that vast and hard to understand for anybody else that you could just say space, but they were just so chill about it. Like, space. I'm like, what?
I loved that. What do
Okay.
you do? Space.
Space. I'm into space. Like, okay, sure. Like, yeah, I had those little stick-on glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling as a kid. Sure, I'm into space too. Way to sound like a normal human being.
It's also amazing that we're just in that situation to be, I mean, talking to like astronauts and astrophysicists and rocket scientists and to notice the fact that they all just say, "Oh yeah, I do space."
Yeah,
Like,
I
okay,
phenomenal. You're like, sure, okay, cool,
space.
great, space. I'm
I
gonna start
also
saying that. I'm gonna be like dirt, old
dirt.
stuff, really, really old stuff.
I mean, I guess to be fair, I was introduced as the weird girl a couple times. So what do you do? "Ah, the weird stuff." So I guess that just kind of happens in the club. That like we had like a potluck, and I think you missed it in December. And Steve's like, just say a sentence like about what you do that sums everything up. And I'm like, well, it's so broad. I don't know. So I'm like trying to think of the best thing to say. And I think I wound up saying, well, I'm a journalist, but I'm starting to specialize in like occult mythology and folklore. And I also just kind of like penguins. And then that just like like labeled me as the weirdo. And then everyone came over like weird stuff, let's talk. And I'm like, oh, okay. Everyone else likes weird stuff too.
Yeah, that's a bunch of weirdos in the best way possible. You
Mhm.
feel like, all those movies about being an outcast as a kid or this or that. And you're like, oh, these are all the other people all around the world who felt that way. And now we have our little community.
Yes.
It's cool. It was strange. I didn't meet another Egyptologist that entire weekend, which was kind of a bummer because I would love to meet another Egyptologist, and also kind of cool because then I could be like the one Egyptologist that
That's your
everyone met.
thing.
And then it was
Yeah.
like, yeah, yes, I am. Yes, I am special and unique. Little
That's your
special little
thing. And
snowflake.
everyone kind of said too, oh, we don't really have Egyptologists. I mean, that was like the thing. And I'm like, you think there would be a lot, but there was just you.
Yeah, lots of outer space, lots of deep sea. Not a lot of people who like old dirt. Not yet.
But that'll be your thing. That's actually wonderful because that is your thing.
Yeah, and it was cool because nobody knew much about ancient Egypt. And so they would ask me a little bit, and I felt like such an expert because I could say even my, compared to my professors, my small bit of information that I have, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know that." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, like this is the first time I felt like I could teach somebody else something that I knew, that like it just really solidified my feeling of belonging. It was really cool."
Mhm. It was pretty exceptional. And I'm going to embarrass us a little bit and just say that we both had like a figure we wanted to meet when we were there. And I mean, you'll never probably hear me say this again, but I was inspired in a lot of the weird stuff by Josh Gates. So I did want to meet Josh, and Dakota really wanted to meet Joe Rody, who funny enough, I had actually met and had a whole conversation about weird stuff with at that potluck in December and had no idea who he
Oh,
was,
he's
which
so cool.
and they just like picturesquely happened to be talking at the exact moment that our chair, Steve, who is lovely, was just like, oh, let me introduce you guys. So it just was this like imperfectly faded moment where we all got to just be introduced and take this really nice photo together. And
We got to have this moment together. We were like, okay, we have to stay cool. We have
yeah,
to
be
stay
cool.
calm. Be cool. Be cool.
I don't think I was cool though, because I think because Joe was like, oh, don't I know you? And I was like, yeah, I was the weird girl from December. Cause that, like, I don't know, that's the most generic thing I can say to be like, oh, yeah, I remember the weird stuff. Right. So then Josh is like, well, why are you the weird girl? And I'm like, this is not how I wanted this to go. But here we are now.
I don't think either of us had necessarily like the first impression that we wanted with either of those people, but luckily that was, pretty early on.
Yes,
We had
and
fun.
Joe just like loves to talk about all his experiences. So he like talked our ear off about his stories, and it was so exciting.
Yeah, he is a wealth of information. It's pretty incredible. I follow him on Instagram, and his captions are always these like essays, and it's so impressive. I mean, and I'm sitting there like Googling funny caption for this and that, for Instagram. I'm like, I need to be clever. And he just goes because he just knows so much about so many things. When he doesn't know, he learns, or he asks someone who does know. And it's so cool.
So cool. It was definitely an amazing experience. And that was just Friday. And then, we also okay, when does this happen? We're at the cocktail mixer on Friday, and there's just this guy. We find this room, this random like office room that we're drinking in or whatever. And like there's just this guy hanging out, and Dakota's like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I work for Mr. and Mrs. So and so. And we're like, oh, but what do you do for them? He's like, I'm their private security. So like, that's just like this. And I think he said that they were like artifact collectors or something. So they just have like their private security guy who's like blending in. And I'm like, when does that happen? I don't know. I'm not usually in situations like that.
No, neither am I. And then you're kind of sitting there and you're like, should I know them?
Yeah. Like, who are
Oh,
they?
it's
What's happening? And I think you even asked him at one point, you're like, is it bad that I don't know who they are? And he's like, I'm glad you don't know who they are.
Yeah, he's like, now I don't have to tackle you when you try to talk to them.
But he was so cool and down to earth. So really anybody you bump into has an interesting story.
Yeah, there was not a boring person in that place. Actually, there was one, but he was hired to be boring and kick people out of places they were
Oh
not
my
supposed to.
God.
But that's okay. It's a job. Someone's got to do it. And
It's his
unfortunately,
job.
yeah. It's
That was weird. There was a point in the night where, okay, guys, it's over, get out. Like the party's done, get the F out, like move, and there's this poor guy that's tasked with like, just get out. And you're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to do this. And we're just like, we empathize. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was like, I wouldn't want to have that job.
No. And so that was just Friday. And then the event itself was on Saturday. And that was, I feel like there's just all these incredible events that happen on Saturday, because that was also when they had the all the award winners speak, and I was very lucky enough to get to sit in on all of that. And then there was that lunch that was hosted by Josh Gates, and he interviewed the Irwins, and that was like, I don't know, the most exciting thing in the entire world for me, because my best friend growing up was like obsessed with Steve Irwin. So I watched all the Crocodile Hunters with her. So I admire that family so much. And I have to say, they were just like the kindest and most incredible people I have ever met. Like, they took the time to speak with everyone that was at the lunch. Like, they thanked everyone else for their work in conservation. I mean, they were just so thoughtful and nice, and it was incredible. And I even had this amazing like conversation with Robert Irwin about the South African penguins and Robben Island. And I was like nerding out, and I was like, this is just the greatest day ever. Like, this is the greatest day. And when I was going to leave the lunch, which by the way, we ate cicadas at the lunch, which I should probably say, but it was weird. And we're leaving the lunch, and I'm like farting around on my phone or something. And I just like, get in, are you coming? Come on, get in the elevator. And I get like ushered into the elevator, and I'm like, oh shit. Like, it was just me and the Irwins and their private security. Like, they'd like, come on, let's go. And I'm like, oh, hi again. What's going on? And so then like, I'm their entourage with them as they leave, and their security guys like holding the door for me. And I'm like, I feel so cool right now.
Yeah, I'm with them.
Totally with them. Like, MVPs in conservation here. And then the gala, which was crazy.
Amazing. There was so much happening. Every 3 feet there was like somebody with an owl, or somebody with a giant python, or somebody painting something, or somebody pouring cocktails through an ice luge sculpture. And it was
ice luge. I don't know, I just loved the way you said that.
It was really cool. It was so much fun.
It was. And then my one disappointment was they obviously didn't make enough of the spiders, because the spiders didn't even make it until when it officially started. Like, there's like an earlier time you can get there with some of the bigger tickets, and like they were gone before like the doors officially open. So we need more spiders in the futures, guy, because like, that was really what I was excited about, was like, I hate spiders, so eating a fried tarantula was like my Everest. But it's okay, because we ate scorpions.
Yes, we did.
That was pretty comparable.
Yeah, next time we'll take a page out of everybody else's book and get there way before we're actually supposed to get there.
Because there's no rules. So
there are no rules.
Guidelines.
Yeah. Light suggestions.
So we'll get there.
You might want to think about this. And then you go, no thanks. And they go, okay, that's fair.
So what do you think the scorpion tasted like to you?
Well, there was a guy standing next to me. I think I don't know if it was for Instagram or YouTube or what, but he was giving a full review of his scorpion. And he mentioned that it tasted metallic. And as he said it, I was like, oh, he's not wrong. That's bizarre. And I mean, they put it on cucumbers with like cream cheese or something like that. So part of it tasted like cucumber, but I don't know, just kind of tasted like a bug.
I have to say, because when they changed the presentation. When I had it, it was on like a leaf of lettuce, right? But like a small leaf of lettuce. And I think that helped, because it had that crunch like around it.
And so like ignore the crunch of the scorpion.
Yes. And I do feel like it wasn't very crunchy. Like, it was more soft, I guess, than I expected it to be, which is so gross talking about it. But it wasn't so like, had it been crunchier, I probably would have like spit it out, but it wasn't, so it was fine.
Did you try any of the cockroaches? No, sorry, not cockroaches. Crickets.
No. So, there weren't crickets. Like, I think the crickets were there after I left on Sunday.
Probably, because
Yeah.
those are pretty crunchy. I don't know how you do it. Those are I'm totally cool with crickets. They taste like pumpkin seeds to me. The worst
Okay.
part is when you get a leg stuck in your tooth and you're like,
Oh,
"I know what that is." I know what that is. 'Cause, like, you eat popcorn and you get a little kernel stuck in your tooth and you try to pick it out with your tongue, and you try to do that and you're like, "Mm-mm, no, I'm
no.
thinking about this way too much. I can't do
I
this
will
anymore."
say that happened a little bit with the scorpion, like, it wasn't crunchy, but I still think the exoskeleton was on there, it was just soft from the way that it was cooked. It's so gross,
Oh god.
and there was,
Oh.
like, shell-ish, like, in my teeth, and I was like, "Oh my god, I have scorpion stuck in my teeth." Like, don't think about it, don't think about it.
I think the worms were the worst for me. I can do crunchy and not think about it, but squishy,
Oh.
yeah, that one was a little hard to get over. Like,
You
it
know,
tasted like you were eating worms, and that was horrible. I did not appreciate that.
they were on a cucumber, though, so that part, I think to me, I just focused on the cucumber and, like, psyched
Mm.
myself out about it. Also, I'll have to say, I got a lot of crap for being cruel and inhumane after eating that scorpion, by the way. I posted that video on Instagram, and I was like, "Whoa, I didn't realize how
Wow.
angry people are," but and I say it too, like, I mean, I'm not gonna get into it. The world is how the world is, and there are things that I will and won't eat because of my morality and things that I can agree with too. I would lean more on the vegetarian side sometimes, but in the end, like you have to consume life to live. And I don't know, that's just like we eat burgers every day, on but that scorpion man, that got some sass.
How interesting. Wow. Ah, the perks of not having a massive following on Instagram.
That was a
I
doozy.
mean, they made a point to say that their intention was to use, like, invasive species for
Hmm.
those exotic, snacks. I don't know, uh, how many of the different types of bugs we ate were invasive species, but at least
That's
they're
actually good
trying.
to know.
Yeah.
And the guy, I wish I was paying more attention, this is terrible, but when we had that lunch and they were serving the cicadas too, the chef that cooks the bugs actually spoke and was saying that, it's actually really sustainable to eat bugs like that, and he had a whole explanation about it, but I honestly don't remember why he said, I just remember him saying that it was, like, practice was sustainable, and that's why he did it.
Yeah, I mean, crickets are a great source of protein apparently, and so that, like, a lot of people think bugs are the future of protein.
Mhm.
I and look at us, we're already starting down that path.
We ate scorpions, there's no going back now.
No.
Although, there was a lot more of, like, a variety of interesting things the previous years I heard, and there's been a lot of articles, like, in some of the major, online publications like BuzzFeed and Huffington Post that were talking about, like, "Oh, this big event for, like, adventurous eaters." Like, that's how I feel like the Explorers Club originally kind of, like, put its foot in the door with a lot of the media, funny enough. It's just, like, the adventurous eating and the bugs and all the creepy things.
Come find out who these weirdos are.
But I mean, I it's even and that's just the food. I mean, there was so much more to the event, and they had a surprise video from Meryl Streep, that was pretty cool.
I lost it during that video. I that was like you couldn't have picked a better person for me personally. I was like, I was looking around my table and everyone was like, "Yeah, cool, it's Meryl Streep," and I was like, "You guys don't understand." I lost my cool completely.
And there was no bad seat in the house. I mean, it's a huge area and they have the screens so you can see everything, but, like, every table had a nice mix of, like, here's an Explorers Club member, here's a sponsor, here's like, everyone was different and had their own story, and
Yeah. Did you see the lightning happening outside?
I don't think I did.
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, all the walls where we were having dinner, the walls were just windows, except for behind the stage. And at one point, there was like this big lightning storm. It was the most gorgeous thing. It was wild. And I kind of felt, I was like, was that a television? Am I imagining this? Is this really happening? Oh my God, it was like the perfect little cherry on top. It felt really adventurous.
I mean, the venue is the glass house, and all the glass, walls and everything. It makes sense, and you get the cool views of Manhattan and the water. So very special with the lightning too.
Yeah. I mean, we were definitely more interested in what was happening inside the building than outside. I think that was the one time I looked out the window the whole
Yeah.
time. The rest of the time I was just picking my jaw up off the floor after everybody I met.
And it's also like, I mean, it went on for several hours, but it didn't feel like it. I was shocked at how quickly they're like, okay, everybody, time for the party, go outside. And I'm like, it's done? Really? Like,
Yeah. It went so fast.
and they made a lot of they kept making jokes at Discovery's expense. That kind of cracked me up too. I don't know if you noticed that, but just
Oh, yeah.
they got like reamed in what seems like a loving and friendly way, but that Discovery table.
Hopefully loving and friendly. I don't know. We'll see how nice the event is next year if they pull their funding.
Well, I think Discovery buys out at least one of the office hallways, like a hallway of offices. I think up there was Discovery. So they're
Okay.
probably BFFs.
Probably.
I think so. And then the after, I mean, we also like, I don't know, I feel like we're very spoiled at the SoCal chapter for the Explorers Club, because not only do we meet regularly and there's a lot of people that we already know, but we also have so many incredible members as a part of our, group. Yeah. So we just know all of these cool people already, it was cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting every time. I mean, you had the great idea of writing on our name tags, SoCal chapter, because everyone would approach us and be like, oh man, I'm so jealous of your chapter. You guys hang out all the time and you get to do all these cool things. We meet maybe once or twice a year and this and that. And then some people would come up and be like, I just moved to Southern California. Who do I talk to join the chapter, or this and that? And it just was such a great icebreaker. It was so simple, and it really made me appreciate our group and Steve.
Oh yeah.
He's that guy. We're so lucky to have him as a chapter chair. He is the best liaison between people, and he's such a good connector, and he's so happy to do it.
Yes. And it's funny because we're just casually like, oh, Steve. But, he actually, so his name is Steve Elkins. He actually found a lost city in South America. He was a Nat Geo videographer. And then upon his adventures, he heard about this lost city, and he actually like led an expedition to find it. So he's just this incredible person, but he's so down to earth. You would never know. And, he's one of those people. I mean, I just reached out to him to get involved, and he was so happy and so welcoming. And he knows each person in the club and like what their interests are. So he's incredibly good at connecting people together, like any good leader should be, but he is exceptional at it.
Yeah, it really is. And he doesn't seem to feel the need to run the show. He just connects the right people and goes, okay, there you go. You can, you take it from here, kind of thing. And you can just ask him for an introduction with somebody, and he'll be like, oh yeah, absolutely. Let's go find that person. He's just the effort is effortless, really. It's incredible.
And he was even saying at one point, like, gosh, I'm so bad at this. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're so good at this. Stop it. Like,
he just thinks everyone is the coolest person in the world. And it's like, Steve, don't forget how cool you are, because everyone here is really impressed by you while you're freaking out about everybody else. And yeah, it's so cool.
It was just an exceptional experience. But everything from like the actual Explorers Club building to the lectures and the next gen speakers and the 50, like you're highlighting 50 new explorers, and the obviously the awards and the presentations, like everything is just, it's a once in a lifetime experience that you get every year, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm really excited for next year just to see, people again who I haven't seen in a year, and like kind of strengthen those bonds and meet new people, and just see what it's like, without that new kid imposter syndrome and feeling like I really have a foot in the door more, I think it'll be great. Just
Definitely.
diving headfirst into the chaos once again
And I
with a
think
little more experience.
a little more. I think I'm still going to have imposter syndrome though, because everyone's so impressive. It's so hard not to have imposter syndrome.
I'm gonna pretend not to. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say I
And
won't.
I feel like our advantage is that we were two young, like women, young, quote unquote, women, together. I
Yeah,
think we
well,
look
especially for
younger
that
than we
group.
are too.
We
Yeah.
do. We definitely do. And I mean, it was really cool to see how many people around our age there were. Because I mean,
Yes.
with the Southern California chapter, there are at least 4 of us that I know of who are around our age.
And that's it.
And that's
They
kind of
show up
it.
at least that show up to the events. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so like those are the people you connect with. And it's nice. I was worried because the people, Steve and some other people that I talked to before joining, they had already had, so much experience and so much. And I just thought like, oh man, am I gonna find, the people that I connect with that I'm gonna go out? Cause like, I don't know, as much as I get along with those people, it's different. You're at different points in your life. And so you're not gonna get along as close as like you and I have. And
Right.
so it's really nice that at least there are some of us. But like, I mean, after the gala, there was this like after party at somebody's beautiful apartment in Chelsea. And it was just full of people who became instant friends.
Mhm.
And everyone was kind of in the same boat of like, I don't think anybody had been in the club for more than a few years who was in that room. And it was really nice because you don't have to put anything on. You don't have to try to make yourself sound more impressive. You can just be exactly where you are in your like Explorers Club journey. And everyone's like, yeah, totally. I'm either right there with you or I was just there. And that's really nice. You're not, standing next to somebody who helped build the internet. You're like,
Right. Oh my
"Mm,
God.
okay."
Definitely. And I do love that there's this emerging young network of all of us that are in there. But I also feel like too, like the two of us together, like me and you, like we made an impression. Everyone's like, oh, there's those young girls running around again causing trouble. Like, the staff knew us by the end, like for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that that yeah, that
It was a
checks
good
out.
thing. It was a good thing though. I mean, I feel like if nothing else, it's like, oh, because even David Dolan is like, I remember you girls because you're the two young girls from our chapter, so like it's kind of like where that's the imprint on their mind of, oh, I know you guys.
Yeah, and I feel like we're not afraid to like make friends with everybody.
Yes.
Whereas like some people were kind of like, oh, I'll wait for the introduction. I felt like I, I kind of forced us to like put our faces
Well,
in front of
that's
people.
you. And thank you for that because I am the worst at that. I'm like, I'll just awkwardly stand here.
That's me all the time. I went out to this like cowboy bar last week with some friends, and there was some guy who was dancing by himself, and he had some fancy footwork in the middle of the dance floor. And I was like, that is so cool. And I saw him sitting down, and all of my friends were leaving, and I was like, I don't want to leave yet. So I just walked up to the guy sitting down and just held my hand out, and he was like, okay. And he taught me all these cool two-step moves and all that. It was so much fun. We spent like 2 hours dancing and it was like, that's just kind of
Oh
my
my
thing, I
gosh.
guess. I just put myself in somebody's face and I'm like, okay, we're friends now.
But I feel like that's a powerful tool to have because you're fearless in social environments, at least. So that's very important because I mean
That's
that you
all
make an impression. Yeah, but it's a big deal. I mean, like you make an impression and that's how people remember you. And you want them to remember you, especially in a club, like a sea of people that have all done amazing things.
seems to be like people either really like me or people really don't like me. I don't think there's anybody who's on the fence about me who's met me, which is it's fine. I'll take it.
I understand. I'm the exact same way. I feel like that's another good point too. I feel like because I come out of my shell when I know people. And I
Mm.
feel like in most situations with like people I know, sometimes I just feel like I'm too much. I'm like, maybe I'm a little bit too much right now. And it sounds like you feel the same way too. And at the Explorers Club, you really don't feel like you're too much.
You're never too much. Never, ever, ever. It is, yeah. I definitely feel that way. Definitely.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I'm too much. And then that was like when I become the introverted version of myself is when I'm feeling like that. And then you hang out with the Explorers Club people or you talk to them for 10 minutes and you're like, oh, right. There's no such thing. I'm just talking to the wrong people.
Yeah. I think we can both say with conviction that we found our people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Now we just gotta
Definitely.
go travel around the world and visit them so we can get our fix of our people.
Yes, nonstop. We're gonna make such a difference in the world, the two of
Yeah.
us. Watch out, everybody. And I guess we're basically out of time here, guys. So that went by fast. It was so much fun talking about the Explorers Club Gala.
So
And
much.
thank you so much for coming on, Dakota.
You kidding? Thank you for having me. I love gabbing about this with you. That was one of the coolest weekends of my life, for sure.
Oh yeah. Me too. And you guys stay tuned because next week I'm gonna have Dakota come back on and we're gonna talk about Egyptology. And until then, everybody, stay weird.